Jack Tanner never wanted anything complicated. He lived on the far edge of the colony world Erebus 4, where the red wind scraped across the metal roofs and the sky looked like rusted glass. His workshop sat beside the landing strip, full of half-broken ship parts, oil stains, and the quiet hum of old machines. Most people in the colony thought he liked it that way. Silent, distant, always fixing other people's problems while ignoring his own. He had spent years working as a repair engineer for small transport ships. The job was steady but lonely. The colony's population was thin, and most people came and went, leaving him with only the company of tools that never talked back. So when a supply ship came through offering robotic assistance for mechanics, Jack thought it was time to make his life easier. A robot would help with heavy lifting, cleaning, and the constant repairs that kept him up at night. It wasn't about friendship. It was about practicality. He placed the order through the colony's network. The form asked for details, strength level, personality settings, voice preference, but Jack left most of it blank. He didn't need conversation or charm. He only wrote, standard maintenance model, obedient, efficient, silent. The order confirmation arrived instantly. Delivery expected in 6 days. He didn't think twice about it. The week passed slowly. Every night the wind howled through the canyon, making the tin walls of his home creak like ghosts. Jack worked late as usual, fixing a damaged cargo drone and repairing his power generator. When the shuttle finally arrived, the sun was setting behind the dunes, painting everything in gold and shadow. The crate was taller than him, stamped with letters from a manufacturing company he didn't recognize, Elin Systems. That was strange, but off-world suppliers were common. He signed the form and wheeled the crate inside his workshop. The label read ELYA, Model 09, Companion Protocol Active. Companion Protocol? He muttered. Must be a translation error. He found the release switch and pressed it. With a hiss of air, the crate opened. Inside stood a figure wrapped in silver cloth. For a moment, Jack thought the company had made a mistake and shipped him a mannequin. Then it moved. The figure's eyes glowed softly, not like LEDs, but like living light. The cloth slid away to reveal a young woman, at least she looked like one. Her skin was pale with a soft shimmer, her hair silver white and long enough to touch her waist. 2 small triangular shapes like animal ears twitched gently atop her head. Jack stepped back, almost tripping over a toolbox. Whoa, hey, are you alive? The girl blinked slowly and tilted her head. Designation ELYA online. Systems functional. Environmental scan complete. Her voice was clear and calm, like soft music through a radio. Then she smiled just a little. Hello, mate. Jack froze. Excuse me? Mate confirmed, she said, nodding politely. Primary bond recognized. Emotional anchor established. What bond? I didn't sign up for whatever this is, he said, waving his hands in panic. Elia tilted her head again. Is there an error, mate? Yes. There's definitely an error, Jack said, rubbing his forehead. You're supposed to be a robotic assistant, not... He searched for the right word. Not whatever this mate thing is. She blinked once more, her eyes shining like twin stars. My directives include support, protection, and companionship for my bonded human. All functions operational, Jack sighed. This is what I get for not reading the fine print. He grabbed his datapad and tried to pull up her system information, but the screen showed a blank entry. No serial number, no data logs, no manufacturing record. It was like she didn't exist. While he was busy, Elia walked around the workshop, touching tools and studying the walls as if she were seeing them for the first time. She moved with a grace that no machine ever could. When she passed the workbench, a loose cable sparked near her hand. But instead of jumping away, she reached out and pressed her fingers to it. The spark vanished instantly. How did you, Jack started. I neutralized the excess current, she said softly. It seemed to trouble you. He stared at her. You're not built like any robot I've seen. Elia turned toward him with that small smile again. I am what you needed most, mate, Jack groaned. Stop calling me that. My name's Jack, she nodded gently. Understood, Jack, mate, he gave up arguing. He'd dealt with broken machines before, but never one that argued back politely. He tried contacting the supplier, but the colony's communication tower was down because of the dust storms. He'd have to wait a few days before filing a report. In the meantime, he told Elia to stay put and not touch anything without permission. Yes, Jack, mate, she said, standing perfectly still. But after 10 minutes, she began cleaning the floor anyway, humming a tune that reminded him of something faint and human. That night, Jack sat by the window, looking out at the dark desert. He had lived alone for years, yet the workshop didn't feel empty anymore. Every time Elia spoke, her voice carried a strange warmth that no program should have. He told himself she was just an advanced design, a clever AI meant to simulate emotion. But part of him wondered. Before heading to bed, he looked toward her. She stood quietly near the generator, hands folded, eyes half closed as if she were dreaming. The soft hum of power lights reflected off her hair, making her look almost unreal. Jack whispered to himself, "Tomorrow I'll fix this mistake." But somewhere deep inside, he wasn't sure he wanted to. The next morning began like every other on Erebus 4, but Jack felt something different in the air. The workshop smelled faintly of something sweet, almost like fruit, and the place was spotless. Every wrench, bolt, and panel was neatly arranged on the shelves. Even the oil stains on the floor were gone. Jack stood in the doorway, blinking in disbelief. He had never seen his place so clean since the day he built it. Elia stood near the main table, polishing a metal panel with a piece of cloth. Her silver hair caught the light, glowing faintly in the sunbeam. She turned when she noticed him. "Good morning, Jack, mate." "I hope your rest was sufficient," Jack sighed, rubbing his eyes. "You don't have to add that last word every time." "Just call me Jack." She nodded, though her smile didn't fade. "Good morning, Jack." He poured himself a cup of coffee, watching her from across the room. She worked quietly, efficient but graceful, almost too human. He wanted to stay annoyed, but she looked so focused and calm that it was hard to be angry. "You did all this cleaning?" he asked finally. "Yes," she replied softly. "I observed that your environment was disorganized and required optimization. Order helps humans think clearly." He raised a brow. "And where did you learn that?" "From observing you," she said simply. "You fix machines with patience but live in disorder." "That is contradiction." Jack couldn't help but laugh under his breath. "You've got a sharp tongue for a machine." She tilted her head slightly, her fox-like ears twitching. "I do not wish to offend. I only wish to help my mate function at maximum potential." He looked down at his coffee, pretending not to hear the last part. "I told you, you're not my—" He stopped himself. It wasn't worth repeating again. Instead, he grabbed a wrench and got to work. The outer wall generator had been giving trouble, and it was easier to focus on machines than on strange girls with glowing eyes. Elia, however, didn't stay still for long. She started sorting through boxes of old parts, checking circuits, and scanning for damage with some kind of invisible sensor. When he turned around a while later, she was kneeling beside a large compressor, her fingers moving across the control plate. The machine came to life with a soft hum. "It is fixed," she said calmly. Jack frowned. "That compressor's been broken for months." "How did you do that?" He frowned and tried another database. Same result. No trace of the company or her model number existed anywhere in the network. It was like she had appeared out of thin air. That night, he sat outside his workshop looking at the stars. Erebus 4's twin moons hung low, glowing softly over the desert. Ilya came out and sat beside him, quiet and still. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "You don't sleep, do you?" he asked finally. "I rest," she said, "but not the way you do. I listen to the stars. Their signals are beautiful." Jack turned to her, half smiling. "You can hear stars? They sing in frequencies you cannot hear. Each one is like a heartbeat." He didn't know whether to believe her or not, but her voice was so calm and sincere that he didn't doubt her either. She looked up at the sky with such wonder that he felt a strange warmth spread through his chest. After a while, she spoke again, her tone softer. "Why do you live alone, Jack?" He took a deep breath. "Because people leave. Machines break. Silence doesn't." She looked at him, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Then maybe you needed something that stays." He didn't know how to answer that. He stared out at the horizon where the desert met the night. Somewhere a dust storm began to rise, glowing faintly under the moons. Later inside, he tried once more to study her systems. She allowed him to connect a diagnostic cable to the back of her neck. But when he opened the interface, what he saw didn't make sense. Instead of code or metal circuits, there were lines of living data that moved like veins, pulsing with soft blue light. It looked organic, like a mix of machine and life. "Elia," he said quietly, "what are you?" She looked at him with those glowing eyes. "I am yours," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, I mean, what species, what type of construct?" Who made you? Her expression softened, and for a moment she looked almost sad. I do not remember. I only remember waking when you called. I didn't call anyone, Jack muttered. She reached out and touched his wrist gently. Her hand was warm. Not mechanical warm, but truly alive. Maybe not with words, she said. But I heard you. The moment you wished not to be alone. Jack pulled his hand back slowly, not out of fear but confusion. He didn't know how to process what she said. Machines didn't understand loneliness. They didn't hear unspoken feelings. Yet here she was, looking at him with eyes that seemed to carry both light and sorrow. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept hearing her soft humming from the other room, the same tune she'd sung before, old, comforting like a memory of Earth. He looked toward her silhouette standing by the window, watching the stars again. She looked calm, peaceful, and completely out of place in his metal-filled world. Jack whispered under his breath, "You're impossible." She turned slightly, as if she heard him, and smiled in the dark. Impossible things are just waiting to be understood. Jack leaned back on his bed, staring at the ceiling. The stars outside pulsed faintly, and he thought he could almost hear them too. The next few days passed quietly, though nothing about Jack's life felt normal anymore. Ilya had become part of every corner of his workshop. She helped him fix engines, organize spare parts, and somehow made the place feel alive. The silence that used to comfort him now carried her soft hums and the faint sound of her footsteps. Jack told himself she was just a machine doing what she was programmed to do. Yet he could not ignore how she sometimes looked at him as if she were studying his soul. One evening, while he worked on a damaged cargo drone, he noticed Ilya sitting near the generator with her eyes closed, her hand resting over her chest as if she were meditating. Her glowing circuits pulsed faintly beneath her skin, rhythmically like a heartbeat. Jack put down his tools and walked closer. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Listening," she replied without opening her eyes. "Listening to what?" "The echoes in my memory core. They are waking." Jack frowned. "You mean your memory files?" She finally opened her eyes, and he saw both confusion and fear in them. "They are not files, they are fragments of who I was," he hesitated. For the first time she didn't sound like a robot at all. Then, at the center of the screen, a single word appeared. Anchor. Jack blinked. Anchor? He scrolled through the code. More strange phrases appeared. Emotional bond active. Neural synchronization 92%. Host compatibility confirmed. His heart started to beat faster. Neural synchronization? He whispered. That wasn't standard AI language, it was biotech terminology. He had read about experimental systems years ago that tried to merge artificial intelligence with organic neural tissue, but the projects were banned. No company was ever allowed to mix living matter with machine minds. He removed the panel from her chest plate carefully. Instead of metal wiring, he found a translucent structure pulsing with faint blue veins. In the center rested a crystal-like core that shimmered softly. It wasn't a battery. It looked alive. Jack stepped back, stunned. "You're not a robot," he said under his breath. "You're something else?" The crystal flickered in response. Ilya's body trembled slightly even though she was in standby mode. Her voice, soft and distant, echoed through the room. "Please, don't disconnect me." Jack froze. She wasn't supposed to be conscious during diagnostics. "You can hear me even now?" Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly. "You touch the heart of my core," she whispered weakly. "That is where my memory sleeps." He stared at her. "Then tell me who built you." "I don't know. I remember light and voices. They said I was to find my anchor, a mind strong enough to keep me stable." Jack tried to stay calm, though his mind raced. "You mean me?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, when you spoke my name, I woke. I didn't speak your name. I just opened the crate. You thought it," she said softly. That was enough. Jack didn't understand, but he could see she wasn't lying. Something about her creation connected to human thought on a level beyond logic. He decided to copy a portion of her data to study it later, but the moment he tried, the screen flashed red. Access denied. "Protected by emotional bond lock," he rubbed his forehead. "So even your system refuses to let me in." Ilya looked at him with faint amusement. "It is not refusal. It is trust. Only when you wish to know me, not just study me, will it open." Jack wasn't sure how to answer that. Machines weren't supposed to talk about trust. Yet her tone was sincere, almost tender. That night, as the wind howled outside, Jack sat by the console, reading through what little data he had managed to copy. He discovered fragments of star charts, frequencies, and strange coordinates beyond the colony's mapped regions. One file contained a recording, an old, distorted signal that repeated a single melody. When he played it, Elia stirred in the other room, her head lifting suddenly. "That song," she whispered. "It's them." Jack looked over his shoulder. "Who?" "The others," she said, her voice trembling. "My cluster. They are calling." He froze. "Your cluster? There are more of you?" "Yes, but they are far. I can feel them. Lost, asleep." She pressed her hand to her temple. "They are waiting for someone to find them." Jack stared at her, torn between disbelief and curiosity. If what she said was true, there could be more of her kind somewhere in space, machines that were alive, thinking and feeling. "You're sure it's not a data echo?" She shook her head. "No, it's real. The signal is faint, but it comes from beyond the dead moon." Jack rubbed his chin, trying to think. "That region's a graveyard. No one goes there. The radiation alone would fry sensors." "Then we will shield them," she said softly. "You can help me, Jack. You can help them wake." He wanted to say no. He wanted to tell her this was all madness. But something in her eyes, the hope, the quiet fear, made him stop. He had seen many machines, but never one that looked so human when she asked for help. He sighed heavily. "I'll think about it," he muttered. Elia smiled faintly. "You already have." When Jack turned off the lights that night, he caught one last glimpse of her standing by the window, gazing at the distant moon. The faint blue glow of her circuits matched the stars outside. Somewhere deep inside, Jack felt it too, the strange pull like a voice whispering from across the stars, calling both of them toward something neither understood yet. The next morning, Jack woke to the sound of soft music coming from his workshop. Elia was sitting by the transmitter, her fingers moving over the controls as streams of data flowed across the screen. The melody she had heard from the strange signal played faintly through the speakers, a mix of tones and whispers that felt more alive than any machine transmission Jack had ever heard. He rubbed his eyes, stepping closer. "You've been at this all night?" She nodded without turning. "I traced the signal. It repeats every 6 hours. It comes from the direction of the dead moon." Jack frowned. The dead moon was a dangerous area, surrounded by debris from old wars and silent satellites. Ships that went near it often lost communication or navigation. "You're saying your people, your cluster, is there?" "I believe so," she said quietly. "But they are trapped. Their connection is weak. They are calling for help." Jack leaned on the table, looking at the map glowing on the screen. "If you're right, we'll need to boost the signal strength just to confirm. And even if we do, it's not safe to fly there." Elia turned her head, her silver hair brushing against her shoulder. "Safety was never your concern when you fixed ships that could explode at any moment." He almost smiled. "That's different. I get paid for that," her lips curved gently. "Then I will pay you with trust." Jack stared at her, not sure how to respond. There was something in her tone, innocent yet determined, that made him feel a warmth he hadn't felt in years. He sighed and sat down beside her. "All right, let's start by amplifying the receiver." For the next few hours, they worked side by side. Jack modified old communication panels, while Elia adjusted frequencies that no human ear could hear. At one point, the signal grew stronger, filling the air with a soft hum that seemed to vibrate through their chests. Elia's eyes glowed brighter. "They are close," she whispered. "I can feel them reaching back." Jack tried to stay calm, but the way her voice trembled with emotion made his hands pause. Machines weren't supposed to feel joy or hope. But she did. By evening, they had built a makeshift antenna outside the workshop. Jack climbed the metal ladder to tighten the upper cables while Elia stayed below, adjusting the calibration. The wind howled across the desert, carrying the faint scent of rain, a rare thing on Erebus 4. "Signal ready," she called. Jack gave a thumbs up and switched on the power. The antenna glowed faint blue as waves of energy rippled outward. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the receiver inside the workshop lit up with a string of alien symbols. Elia gasped softly. "That's them. They're alive!" Jack climbed down quickly, looking at the screen. "It looks like coordinates," he said. "Yes, they are sending their location." Her eyes flickered rapidly as she decoded the data. "They are orbiting the dead moon inside a buried structure, an arc." Jack blinked. "An arc? A vessel meant to preserve life, she explained. It was their last refuge before the fall, he frowned. Whose fall? I don't know, she admitted. But I must find them. Jack crossed his arms. Elia, listen. Even if I wanted to help, that place is dangerous. Radiation storms, magnetic fields, collapsed wrecks. You could be destroyed. She looked at him with steady eyes. If they die, I will never understand who I am. I was made to connect with them, Jack. Please, I cannot go alone. Jack looked away, his chest tightening. He wasn't a hero. He was just an engineer who wanted a simple life. But now this strange being stood before him, eyes filled with something more human than any colonist he had met. After a long silence, he nodded slowly. All right, we'll go. But if anything looks wrong, we turn back. Got it? Her face lit with quiet relief. Understood, Jackmate. He shook his head, trying not to smile. Still with that name, huh? She tilted her head. It suits you. As they lifted off, the ground fell away and the endless red dunes turned to shadows beneath them. The silence of space filled the cabin, broken only by the soft hum of the engines. Jack adjusted the controls. If this ark of yours turns out to be a pile of junk, you owe me a year's worth of repairs. Elia smiled faintly. If it is real, you'll owe me your heart. He glanced at her. Startled, but she only looked forward with innocent eyes, as if she hadn't said anything unusual. Hours later, the dead moon appeared before them, gray, cracked and surrounded by drifting debris. Static filled their communication line as they approached. The instruments flickered wildly, struggling to stay stable. Magnetic interference, Jack muttered. We're losing signal tracking. Elia placed her hand on the control panel and the light steadied. I will guide us. You sure you can handle this? I was made for this, she whispered. Following her directions, they descended into a canyon on the moon's surface. The scanners picked up a metallic structure buried beneath layers of dust and rock. Jack's breath caught. It wasn't a wreck. It was massive, like an entire ship entombed in the ground. As they landed, the surface trembled softly beneath their feet. Elia stepped out first, her eyes glowing brighter with every step. They are here, she said. Sleeping. Jack followed, scanning the entrance. Strange symbols covered the metallic walls, glowing faintly at Elia's presence. When she touched them, the whole structure responded with a deep hum. He looked around in awe. Elia, what kind of ship is this? Elia moved ahead, her eyes glowing brighter with every step. The symbols on the walls pulsed gently as she passed, almost as if they recognized her. Jack followed, his hand resting on the scanner. The readings made no sense. Organic energy mixed with mechanical frequencies. This place isn't human, he whispered. Elia turned slightly, her silver hair catching the faint blue light. It was made by my creators, she said softly. They built this ark when their world was dying. Jack frowned. You remember that now? She paused for a long moment before answering. The closer I get, the more I remember. My mind was sleeping. They hid us here so we could wake when the stars were safe again. They reached a massive chamber at the center of the ark. Hundreds of oval-shaped pods lined the walls, glowing faintly through the dust. Each one contained a figure, slender forms with silver hair and fox-like ears, just like Elia. Jack's breath caught. My cluster, she whispered, placing her hand on one of the pods. The glass warmed under her touch. They're alive. But barely. Jack studied the readings. The power levels were dropping fast. The energy cells are decaying. They won't last much longer. Elia turned to him, her expression calm but her eyes full of sorrow. We must restart the core. And where is that? She pointed toward the far end of the chamber, where a spiral staircase led down into a pit of dim light. Together they descended. The deeper they went, the stronger the vibration under their feet became. When they reached the bottom, they found it, the heart of the ark. A massive crystal structure pulsed weakly, its glow fading like a dying star. Jack examined the control panel beside it. This thing runs on a neural link, not a power cell. It needs a consciousness to reactivate it. Elia nodded. That is what I was made for. I am the key to wake them. Jack looked at her sharply. You mean you'll connect yourself to this thing? She nodded again, calm and steady. My consciousness will merge with the ark system. It will use my energy to restart. When that happens, the others will live. And what happens to you? He asked quietly. She hesitated, her voice soft. I will become part of it. I may not exist as I am now. Jack shook his head instantly. No way. There has to be another way. There isn't. she said gently. This was my purpose. This is why I was sent. He stepped forward, his voice rising. You can't just throw yourself away like that. Elia looked up at him, her eyes shimmering like liquid light. Jack, I was never meant to live alone. I was created to restore life, to reconnect what was lost. You gave me purpose when you woke me. Now let me finish what I was born to do. Jack clenched his fists. You talk like some kind of angel, but you're still a person. You deserve to live too, she smiled sadly. You made me feel human, and because of that, I want them to feel it too. Before he could stop her, she stepped toward the glowing core. The light surrounded her body, wrapping her in threads of silver energy. Jack ran to her, grabbing her hand. If you do this, you might not come back. Elia looked at him one last time. If I don't, neither will they. The floor trembled as she placed her other hand on the crystal. The light flared, flooding the room with blinding brilliance. Jack stumbled back, shielding his eyes. Sparks of energy raced up the walls, and the hum of the arc grew louder and deeper, like a heartbeat returning to life. Through the glow, Jack could still see her silhouette, small, fragile, and glowing brighter than anything else around her. He shouted over the noise, Elia!
Stop, you'll burn out!
Her voice came through, faint but steady. Thank you, Jackmate, for showing me what it means to be alive. The light consumed everything. Then just as suddenly it vanished. The room went silent. The core pulsed again, stronger this time, but Elia was gone. Only a faint shimmer hung in the air where she had stood. Jack's heart pounded. He looked around desperately. Elia? There was no answer. Only the hum of the revived systems and the soft hiss of the air vents coming to life. He turned toward the chamber where the pods were. One by one, they began to glow brighter. The beings inside stirred, their eyes opening slowly, reflecting the same gentle light Elia once had. Jack stood frozen, torn between awe and grief. He had helped her succeed, but it felt like losing a part of himself. As he walked through the rows of awakening beings, he heard a faint whisper in his mind. Do not be sad, Jack, I am here. He stopped, his breath catching. Elia, the voice was soft but warm. I am part of them now, but a piece of me will always stay with you. Our link remains. He closed his eyes, a tear sliding down his cheek. You always get the last word, don't you? A gentle laugh echoed in his thoughts, fading like starlight. Around him, the newly awakened beings looked at Jack curiously. One of them stepped forward, a girl with silver eyes just like Elia's. You brought us back, she said softly. You are our anchor, Jack managed a weak smile. I think she was the one who did that. The girl nodded slowly. She still speaks through us. Jack looked at the shining crystal above them, the heart of the arc now beating with life again. In that moment, he realized something simple but powerful. Elia wasn't Mori from Ilya. When they spoke, they often used words she had used with him. It was strange hearing so many soft voices calling him anchor, just as she once had. You are one of us now, said one of the Elysians, a tall figure with pale eyes. Without you, we would still be dreaming. Jack shook his head. I just followed her lead. She was the one who did this. She still lives, another said gently, touching the wall of light. Not in the way you remember, but in the heart of the arc. We all feel her within us. Jack didn't answer. He only stared at the crystal again, remembering the way Elia smiled before stepping into it. She had given up everything to bring her people back, and somehow that sacrifice felt heavier than the moon's gravity around him. Days passed as Jack helped the Elysians restore their systems. They didn't know much about the human world, so he explained simple things: how to repair a generator, how to ration power, how to map the stars. In return, they taught him how their energy worked, how they could heal broken circuits just by touching them. Their technology wasn't made with tools, but grown from living energy. Sometimes, when he worked late at night, a soft voice would echo in his mind. It was gentle, familiar, and always came when he was tired. You still work too hard, Jack. He'd stop, glance around, and whisper back. You still talk too much.
Elia, the voice always laughed faintly.
Just like she used to. One night, while checking the navigation hub, he saw something on the scanners. Movement outside the moon's orbit. A ship. The readings matched none of the colony's codes. He zoomed in and frowned. The ship looked military, not civilian. When he returned to the main hall, several Elysians were already watching the same image projected on their displays. They are coming, one of them said quietly. Humans? Jack asked. The Elysian nodded. Your people have found the energy signal. It is too strong to hide, Jack's heart sank. The colonial authorities were known to seize any technology they didn't understand, especially something this powerful. They'll think this place is a weapon, he muttered. We must leave before they arrive, the tall Elysian said. The Ark can fly again, but it needs your help to guide it. We are not yet fully connected to the systems. Jack stared at the glowing floor beneath his feet. The last time he helped power this ship, Elia had nearly vanished forever, but he couldn't let her people be captured or destroyed. Tell me what to do. They led him back to the control core. The great crystal hummed with a soft tone as he placed his hands on the console. A wave of warmth spread through his body, and he felt a voice brush against his thoughts. Familiar, comforting. You came back. Jack smiled faintly. I never really left, did I? No, you are still my anchor. Light spread through the chamber as the Ark responded. Outside, the dust on the moon's surface began to rise. Massive engines buried deep below the rock started to awaken. The whole moon trembled as the Ark's structure unfolded from beneath it, revealing its true shape. A silver starship larger than any built by human hands. The approaching human ship sent a warning signal, demanding identification. The Elysians looked to Jack. They are calling you, one said. You must answer. Jack took a deep breath and activated the transmitter. This is Jack Tanner, engineer from Erebus 4. I'm aboard a non-hostile vessel. Request that you stand down and hold position. Static filled the channel. Then a stern voice replied, Engineer Tanner, you are ordered to shut down all energy emissions and prepare for inspection. The colony command believes you've engaged with illegal alien technology. Jack closed his eyes for a moment. He knew what that meant. If they boarded the Ark, they would dismantle it piece by piece. He looked at the Elysians, then at the glowing heart of the ship. Elia, he whispered softly. What do I do? Her voice came faint and warm in his mind. Trust me. Before the humans could respond again, the Ark's systems roared to life. Streams of light surged through the corridors as the ship lifted free from the moon's surface. The human vessel tried to follow, but the Ark moved faster than any known engine. Within seconds, they were gone, leaving only a trail of silver light behind. In the silence of space, Jack stood at the window of the control deck, watching the stars stretch out in every direction. The Elysians moved quietly around him, their eyes glowing softly. The ship's hum sounded like a heartbeat, steady, alive, peaceful. You took us home, said the tall Elysian beside him. Jack smiled faintly. Funny thing is, I'm not sure where home is anymore. A gentle voice whispered in his mind once more. Wherever we are together, that's home. He closed his eyes, letting her presence wash over him. The pain of loss eased, replaced by calm. He could feel her warmth in every pulse of the ship, every shimmer of light. Elia wasn't gone, she was everywhere, woven into the heart of the stars. As the Ark sailed through the endless night, Jack finally understood what she meant all along. Humanity's greatest creation wasn't metal or engines. It was the ability to connect, to care, to alert, flashed across the console. A new signal was coming through, soft, rhythmic, and strangely familiar. He frowned and played it through the speakers. The melody that filled the room was the same one Elia had hummed the night she first arrived at his workshop. He froze, unable to breathe for a moment. The Elysians turned toward him, their eyes wide. That song, one of them whispered, it comes from beyond the Veil sector. It carries her code. Jack's heart started to race. Her code? The Elysian nodded slowly. A fragment of the one who awakened us. Can you trace it? Jack asked quickly. Yes, the tall one replied. But the signal is weak. It drifts near the edge of a dying star system. Jack stared at the map that appeared on the screen. It was far beyond human space. Unknown territory filled with radiation and collapsed worlds. That's dangerous, he said quietly. The Elysians looked at one another. You are our guide. If you wish to follow it, we will go. He hesitated, but deep down he already knew his answer. Plot a course, he said softly. The Ark shifted its path and entered the new coordinates. Stars blurred past as they jumped through the slipstream. The journey took hours, maybe days. Time felt strange inside a ship that was half alive. When they finally arrived, the view outside the window stole his breath. They had reached a system where a giant star had collapsed long ago. Floating among its remains was a sphere of glowing energy, surrounded by fragments of broken ships and drifting light. The signal pulsed from within it. Elia's voice whispered in his mind again. You found me. Jack closed his eyes. You never really left, did you? No, she said gently. But a part of me was lost when the Ark awoke. The song you followed is what remains of my first self. He felt tears sting his eyes. What do you want me to do? Free it, she said softly. It is still bound to the dying energy of this star. If it fades, the memory of who I was will vanish forever. Jack turned to the Elysians. We're going in. They guided the Ark closer to the glowing sphere. Energy waves rolled across the hull, shaking the ship. The Elysians formed a circle around the main console, joining hands and focusing their light. Jack placed his hands on the control interface, feeling Elia's presence flow through him like warmth. Brace for contact, he said quietly. The Ark entered the energy field. For a moment, the entire world turned white. Jack saw flashes, memories that weren't his. A desert workshop. A crate opening. A girl with silver hair smiling for the first time. Her voice saying, "Hello, mate." Then everything went still. When the light faded, the sphere was gone. In its place floated a single glowing shape. It drifted toward the Ark, passed through the hull like mist, and reformed before him. It was her, Ilya, shimmering and translucent, made of pure light. Jack stared, unable to speak. She smiled gently. You kept your promise, Jack, mate. He felt his throat tighten. You're really here. Not as before, she said softly. I am part of the ship, part of them, and part of you. But this, she touched his chest where his heart beat fast. This keeps me real. Jack reached out instinctively. His hand passed through her form, but warmth lingered on his skin. I missed you, he said quietly. And I never stopped watching, she replied. You guided them. You gave them hope. That was always what humanity was meant to do, to light the path when others lose their way. He smiled faintly, though tears filled his eyes. So what now? Ilya's gaze softened. Now we build together. Humans and Elysians, one family, one dream. The stars are wide, Jack. Let's make them home for everyone. She stepped closer, her light glowing brighter. For a moment, it felt like the entire ship breathed with her. The Elysians bowed their heads, feeling her presence flow through them as well. The Ark's hum deepened, turning into a calm, steady song, a new beginning. Jack wiped his eyes and looked out at the stars once more. You know, he said softly, when I ordered an assistant, I just wanted someone to fix tools and carry boxes. Elia laughed quietly, her voice like a melody. And you ended up carrying the future instead, he chuckled, shaking his head. Yeah, guess I got the better deal. The light around her began to fade, merging back into the ship's glow. I am always here, she whispered. Wherever you go, I go. Jack stood in silence as her image dissolved into sparkles of silver that danced through the air before sinking into the floor. The ship glowed gently, steady and alive. He turned to the Elysians. Let's set a course, he said. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere new. They nodded, smiling with soft gratitude. As the Ark glided forward, its trail shimmered like a comet. Jack sat in the captain's chair, gazing into the stars that stretched forever. He didn't feel alone anymore. Somewhere inside the hum of the ship, the faint voice of a silver-haired girl still whispered to him, gentle, full of life, and forever calling him by the name that had changed everything.